Hello, welcome again to Benchwarmers. We are talking South Dakota State University football this week. Got Zach Lujan coming up, the new offensive coordinator for the Jackrabbits, the former SDSU quarterback as well. But we are going to start with the voice of South Dakota State University football, Tyler Merriam, who is standing by in Brookings in his fantastic SID office up there. You're still at Frost Arena, correct?
We are still inside the cozy confines of Frost, and the air conditioning is being renovated right now, so the spotlight is shining bright, and we're sweating out like crazy here,
Nice.
Thomas.
All right. You were a freshman at SDSU in 2003, is that right?
I have to remember that far back. Yes. In 2003, I was a freshman, so I've been here a while, Tom.
And got into radio, really, when you started in school there. When did you take over as the voice of SDSU football?
I started doing radio in high school with Chris Stevens in Pierre, who actually done radio here at SDSU back in the early 90s and called some of your games, Tom, to date you as well. But I got a chance to do a football game in 2006 and then took over full-time as football voice. I worked 2 years with Steve Emming, 2009 and 10, and then have been the play-by-play guy since 2011.
And that's really when it started to get good for the Jackrabbits. As an FCS contender, they've made 10 straight playoffs now. The last 10 years have been fantastic. It's going to be the 19th season, technically, that SDSU has played in the FCS, which is incredible. Time flies. But let's touch on last year just a little bit. Jacks actually played, 25 games in the calendar year in 2021. But you get to that fall season, they finished 11-4, 8-3 in the regular season, and there were some great wins in there at Colorado State and beat North Dakota State, obviously, in the marker game. But you always go back to the losses, and it was kind of a quirky season with some of those home losses last year for the Jacks.
Yeah, it certainly was. You felt like a couple of games got away from SDSU during the regular year that they easily could have or should have won. I mean, that's how thin the margin is, right? It's one play. It's razor thin. And so the Jacks lose 2 games they really felt they shouldn't have lost, which meant instead of being maybe a top 4, maybe a top 2 seed, now they become road warriors. And what a playoff run they had, bouncing all over the country to reach the FCS semifinals. It really was impressive. But obviously, in the end, like you said, Tom, you kind of have that bad taste in your mouth, and yet a few teams have been able to do what they were able to accomplish, to win multiple playoff games on the road and to reach the Final Four again for the 4th time in the last 5 FCS seasons.
Yeah, second 11-win season, and that's the standard now, is get to the semifinals, get to the national championship game for the Jackrabbits. And we are going to go back to a couple of plays that everybody, I think, remembers from last season. And I put these out for you as some of the wildest plays of last year for the Jacks. And you picked this one right away. We've got some video of Malik Lofton. This is in the Southern Illinois game, which the Jacks lost in overtime. But how crazy was this play when you're making the call?
This was nuts, and you were there too, Tom, obviously. I mean, I barely recall it. It got so crazy in the moment that Southern Illinois on 4th down goes for it and has what looks like Williams is going to break it for a touchdown, gets hit, and the ball comes loose. Malik Lofton picks it up. I think every Jackrabbit on the sideline ended up on the field during the return, and somehow the play stood. If SDSU wins that game, that's an all-timer. It somewhat is a disappointing moment because the Jacks didn't win, but that's an unbelievable play. That's Tom, you called it too. That's got to be an all-timer for you, doesn't it?
Oh, it was fantastic. That's as excited as I have been calling a Jackrabbit football game. That's about as loud as I've heard it at Danny J. Dykehouse Stadium as well. So that was fantastic from last season. Another one here that you picked right away is one of Pierre Strong's touchdown throws, and this was in the marker game against North Dakota State. The 5-hole from Pierre Strong to Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, in the moment, because of who you're playing, it was a 4th down play. It was a huge gamble, but it worked perfectly. Now, again, as we're going to see, Tom, on this angle, I don't know if we can truly call it a pass. It was more of a wobbly pheasant, but it certainly got the job done, and so it resulted in 6 points. But Pierre Strong Jr. Did not throw an incompletion during his time as a Jackrabbit. It's remarkable that he threw the ball as often as he did, as successfully as he did. And I know, Tom, he petitioned for more opportunities to throw the pigskin, but they limited him to the one-offs.
And he was, 9 for 9? Is that what he ended up with? 9? Was it 9 touchdown passes?
It was a perfect efficiency rating. That I do recall.
All right. Pierre Strong, speaking of strong, I would be the worst NFL scout in the world because I never know watching the Jackrabbits, who's got that NFL potential? Pierre Strong obviously did and is obviously now with the New England Patriots after being drafted. But when did you kind of notice that he had that ability to get to the next level?
Well, I think we had a pretty good idea that it was more than just a pipe dream when NFL Films organized a segment for 3 or 4 under-the-radar guys that they thought had legitimate potential and sent a camera crew out to Brookings in early October and followed him around for a whole week. And you said, you know, if they're putting this much of an investment in Pierre Strong Jr., there obviously is a lot of legs to this thing. And every team had scouts in during the course of last fall to take a look at him. And I think what really impressed me during the fall was that he was a little dinged up in the spring, second half of that spring season, but he became more of a physical running back. He wasn't just the juke guy. He always had that one step, and you saw it there against Youngstown where he could make that one step and then turn on a dime the other way, but he was more physical. He was able to run better between the tackles, and I think that improvement in his game from the spring to the fall is really what put him higher up on NFL radars, got more attention to him, and eventually earned him that spot where he got drafted in New England.
Just so fun to go back and watch those highlights and appreciate what he did as a Jackrabbit, and looking forward to what Pierre Strong Jr. can do in the NFL with New England coming up. All right, more with Tyler Merriam coming up. We're going to talk about how South Dakota State has become really a tight end university and sending guys as well to the NFL. So more with Tyler Merriam and Jackrabbit football when we come back.
You're watching Benchwarmers, presented by Avera Orthopedics on Midco Sports.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers, talking South Dakota State University football this week. The Jackrabbits open up September 3rd at the University of Iowa in their FBS game. And let's bring back in Tyler Merriam, the voice of South Dakota State University on the Jackrabbit Sports Network. And Tyler, let's talk about how South Dakota State has become really tight end university. You go back, you were mentioning some names from way back in the day, but you go back to Steve Hayden in the 90s, Dallas Goddard, obviously now at the Philadelphia Eagles, and then an embarrassment of riches still at the tight end spot coming into this season for the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, I don't think it's an accident that SDSU really made that big jump from a quality team to a national championship contender in the spring when they started using those 2 tight ends so well in the forms of Zach Hines and obviously Tucker Kraft, and 2 different guys, but 2 incredibly talented individuals. And as good as Hines is, Kraft is the one that probably gets more attention. And, he's got an NFL career. Everybody seems very confident of that as you see what he can do. Dad obviously had a heck of a college career as well, one of the all-time tight ends. These are 2 guys that balance each other out so well. They're great team players. And when you got both in the field, it really is pick your poison.
Yeah, you talk about Kraft gets the attention. He kind of seeks more attention than Zach Hines does. They're kind of different personalities, as you said, but how do they fare differently on the field? Is Kraft more of a kind of a wide receiver in a tight end body? And here's Zach Hines, who is such a great blocker, could be an offensive lineman, but they differ in that way a little bit, right?
Yeah, Hines a little longer. Obviously, that helps him in the jump ball scenario. So I think around the goal line, you see that come up at times. Kraft is just so versatile. I mean, played 9-man football at Timberlake and played darn near every position on both sides of the ball during his high school days. So to have him sneak under center, take a direct snap, and run with the football, to have him throw the football are all things that your next guest, Zach Lujan, I'm sure can tell you are possibilities in the offense this fall.
And it is such a big deal for a quarterback to have a tight end. You're making a lot of shorter throws a lot of times, and it's kind of a safety valve, or it could be, but the way they run Kraft in on some of those middle tight end screens is really a tribute, I think, to the former offensive coordinator, Jason Eck, and now, as you said, Zach Lujan, is the way they use those guys. And while we're talking about quarterbacks, your thoughts on who it's going to be when we get to the Iowa game September 3rd. Mark Gronowski, fantastic freshman season as a true freshman, got injured in that national championship game, missed last year. You've also got Keaton Heide back. Rudy Voss is a great quarterback that has not seen a lot of time, but you got those 3 guys. Is there any question of whether it will be Gronowski once we get to the season?
I mean, at this point, we've all been led to believe it's Mark Gronowski. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, he's the Missouri Valley Offensive Player of the Year from last spring, and what a job he did. And again, when they figured everything out, you go back to those first 3-4 games of the spring, he was throwing a lot. In this Youngstown game we're looking at, they threw maybe more than they normally would. Then they really sorted out how to use him in the run game right here and really begin more of that power quarterback run and lean more on that and less on him vertically. And that's when that offense really started to progress with the use of the tight ends. So as long as Gronowski's healthy, it's hard to imagine nothing against Heide or Voss, but how do you go against the results of what Gronowski did when he makes throws like that with the game on the line against Youngstown?
Yeah, you never know till you know, I guess, and we'll wait until September 3rd to see who it's going to be. But all eyes on Mark Gronowski as he kind of makes his return. And he was there in the spring, didn't play in the spring game, but coming back. It's been 12, 13 months since that knee injury, so we're hopeful that Mark Gronowski is back. And again, September 3rd at Iowa is the opener. All the games, as usual, on the Jackrabbit Sports Network with Tyler and your guys, correct?
That's right. In fact, we're adding an hour to the pregame now, Tom. There's so much going on, we couldn't compact it into 1 hour. So 2 hours before every kickoff, we're going to come on the air these days. So it's going to be a fun and exciting fall. We're really looking forward to it.
All right. Appreciate the time, my man. We will see you out there. Thanks a lot.
Can't wait. Take care, Tommy.
All right, Tyler Merriam, the radio voice of South Dakota State University. And when we come back, we're going to check in with Zach Lujan, the former SDSU quarterback, now the offensive coordinator for the Jackrabbits. Welcome back to Benchwarmers, talking South Dakota State University football this week. And we welcome in Zach Lujan now from Brookings, former SDSU quarterback back in 2014 through 2016. Fourth year now on the coaching staff, I believe, Zach, and first year as the offensive coordinator, right? How does your role kind of change going into this season now?
Yeah, it's first off exciting to be able to do this at my alma mater. I know pretty fortunate in that regard, especially in the coaching world with all the constant turnover and change from that standpoint. But really, it's just kind of, I guess, the next step more than anything. Still coaching the quarterback, still overseeing that part of things, now just taking more of a holistic approach to the entire offense and everything there. So very much looking forward to it. And, we've been pretty good on the offensive side of the football. So looking forward to kind of adding my personal touch, my spin on things, and still building off of what we do really well with, the really talented players that we have on the offensive side of the ball there.
Last year was nuts. You guys played in 2021 from February to December. You guys played 25 actual football games in 1 year. Did that take a toll, or looking back on that, was it fine?
It was a long year. I'd be all right not doing that again, just from a time management standpoint. Yeah. I think might be the right way to do that. And you add in all the unknowns with COVID and all that kind of thing. It makes it just for a long year. But we were fortunate, in a lot of ways to first off be able to be healthy throughout that whole deal, and then in the grand scheme of things, having two very good football seasons. And I believe we're the only team in NCAA history to play 25 games in one calendar year. So that's kind of a cool deal there that we'll always have and going that way. But it was, made for a quick turnaround coming off the spring season. I believe the national championship game was May 16th or somewhere around that time frame. And less than 3 months later, we're back in fall camp, ready to do it all over again.
Let's get to the end of the regular season last year. Took that crazy loss at South Dakota and then had to come back. You were 7-3 going into this game. We've got some video of the game against North Dakota. You guys win 24-21. But how important was this game to maybe get you guys into the playoffs and kind of vault you into the playoffs?
This was a huge one. First off, from a momentum standpoint, obviously coming off of a last-second loss in that regard, our guys did a great job of responding and coming out ready to play. And this just solidified us from being a potential bubble team to not making the playoffs for the first time in a decade, till we're in for sure. And what's our route to a playoff run looking like? And the guys came out ready to play. We were awesome student section that game in particular. And a really successful, really fun game to play in. And what I love about this game in particular is you can kind of just see the joy for the team. The passion for football, playing, celebrating with each other, and the love for being out there and love for being with each other.
And then that gets you into the playoffs. 2 big road wins. You go, as you said, West Coast beat Sacramento State, and then go out to Villanova, East Coast, and win that game. And then it comes to an end against Montana State. And maybe I thought maybe that is where that long season where you played 25 games kind of took a toll, or maybe what happened in the second half against Montana State.
Yeah, we'll never use that as an excuse with anything. It was a long year, but for our guys, it's awesome. You're a college football player. You love playing the game. So the opportunity to play 25 times in 1 year, I mean, shoot, that's a lot more fun than practice for our guys that way. But, more than anything, we ran into a really good football team. They had an unbelievable home field advantage, unbelievable atmosphere, and then they did a great job in the second half, changing some things from a defensive standpoint, kind of putting the clamps on us, and maybe made 1 or 2 adjustments better than we did. From that regard, as well as they just had a damn good football team. You look at how physical they were in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and they were fortunate. Their quarterback had a heck of a game, was able to run the ball pretty well, and they had those 2 receivers who made quite a few plays for them, and that deal also. So, I can't take anything away from them and the job that they did, and it was a really good football game. It was a hard fought football game, and we're excited. Unfortunately, it closed the chapter on last year, but we got a lot of pieces coming back, and a lot of guys who were impactful last year who are going to make a difference for us this year moving forward.
And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but you go 11-4 with a quarterback who came in basically as a guy you didn't know what you were going to get. Chris Oladokun could be his own Hallmark movie for kind of the story that he has had coming in for 1 season, leading you guys to the semifinals, and then he is drafted in the 7th round in the NFL by the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you take away from what Chris Oladokun did?
First off, I can't be more proud of him. We talked when he had a very short recruiting period. I think the first time I called him was May 20th, and he committed May 28th, and then we got him up here, first or second week of June that way. So it was very quick, fast, and in a hurry with all that there. But he did an unbelievable job coming in, working his tail off, great from a leadership standpoint. Obviously, you can see his arm talent is undeniable. But I told him when he came here, I wanted 3 things. I wanted him to help us make a push for a national championship. I wanted him to have a successful experience at South Dakota State, and I wanted him to play on Sundays. And I can't tip my hat enough to this kid. He was on nobody's radar from an NFL standpoint, from a draft standpoint, and worked his way up the ladder, had a great season, and was fortunate enough to be drafted by the Steelers there. So you said a Hallmark movie. This might be my most memorable football experience just from the story that he has, and playing at 3 different universities and working his way up the ladder, battling adversity, and the smile on his face that he had every day, and the work ethic that he came in with, and just the impact he left on our entire football program. But I would say especially the quarterback room is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and the Steelers actually drafted another quarterback ahead of him. Oladokun obviously got some work to do there in Pittsburgh, but congrats to him. And as you said, just a great story with your connection to Chris Oladokun. So who's going to be the QB going into the opener at Iowa? We'll talk more with Zach Lujan and how fun this SDSU offense is going to be again this season. More with Zach when we come back.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports, presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Well, welcome back. Finishing up talking Jackrabbit football this week, and bring back in Zach Lujan, who takes over as the offensive coordinator for the Jackrabbits this year, and the quarterback's coach as well. Let's talk about the QBs. Mark Gronowski, injured. He's been out 13 months or so now after that injury in the national championship game in the spring season. But where is he at? Is he necessarily going to be the starter once we get to the Iowa game coming up on September 3rd, Zach?
Yeah, Mark looks great from a rehab standpoint. He's done an outstanding job. One of the things him and I talked about before last season was, hey, let's use Chris coming in, a more experienced, seasoned guy, as a positive to learn from him and take, build off of your successful freshman season, take a lot of the things that he did well and build them into your game. And he did exactly that. It's pretty cool for me as a coach to to know that they met on their own every Thursday and every Sunday to watch film and do their whole thing, that they were able to steal a lot from each other and help them both improve as players from that standpoint there. So, Mark's our guy coming in. He earned that, being named freshman of the year, offensive player of the year in our conference as a true freshman. It's pretty unbelievable. And in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and we're fortunate to have a lot of depth behind him with a lot of guys that we feel pretty strongly about that can help us win in a lot of ways. But Mark's going to come in and be our guy, and like I said, he's not only earned that right, but he's building off of it with a very strong spring and then very strong summer season as well.
All right, looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the offense again. You take over calling the plays this year, and we've got some video here of the Yankee brothers, Jackson and Jaden, and they've been fantastic. And what else are we going to look for in the offense this year?
We got a lot of talented pieces. We talk about the Yankees, we talk about our other two starting tight ends, both from South Dakota, Canyon Bauer, Landon Wolf, two really good running backs, Isaiah Davis and Mark Johnson. And obviously, we just got done talking about Mark. So we're going to make them defend the whole football field. Whether that means some stuff in the RPO realm, some stuff with element plays, reverses, those types of things, or pushing the ball down the field. And obviously, everything starts with running the ball right away. So we're gonna be pretty dynamic from that standpoint. And like I said, we got the most talented skill group in the entire country. So make the defenses sweat, make them feel pressure, and make them defend the entire football field.
All right, can't wait. Looking forward to it. Camp gets started here in a couple of weeks for the Jackrabbits. Zach, we will talk to you then. Appreciate the time, my man.
Thanks. Have a good one.
All right, when we come back, a peek ahead to next week here on Benchwarmers. Our thanks, as always, to Avera Orthopedics. Thanks to Tyler Merriam and Zach Lujan as the SDSU Jackrabbits get set for their football opener September 3rd at Iowa. More college football next week on Benchwarmers. Jay Elson is in with the latest on the USD Coyotes.